Fortunes, back to another nutrition video. This video is going to be based on IBS as well as bowel movements, how to have like a healthy gut motility, bowel movements, that kind of thing. It can be a bit embarrassing for some people to talk about, but generally these kinds of things need to be talked about because a lot of people might be suffering without even knowing that there are very easy and simple things that they can do to help with symptoms they may be experiencing, and to know that other people experience things like that too. I'm going to start off talking about IBS, so if this is something you know you don't have, you can skip to later on in the video where I just talk about general tips and tricks that will help you to have healthy bowel movements. If you do have some kind of symptoms and you haven't been checked out by the doctor, you might want to listen to this first part and just see if any of these things sound like you, and then you can then go to your GP and say, I think I might have something like this. They can check you out, run some tests and see if there is anything wrong. IBS stands for Irritable Bowel Syndrome and is a very common condition of the digestive system. It can have some really negative symptoms, and these can include stomach cramps, bloating, diarrhea, and constipation. So the stomach pains or cramps that are associated with the IBS are usually sometime after eating and often get better after you do a poo. IBS isn't necessarily one set thing, so these symptoms might come and go over time. They might be really bad for a period and then get better again, but it can have a really big impact on your life. So there's no cure for IBS. There are dietary changes and medicines that can help you to reduce those symptoms. The exact cause of IBS is unknown, but there are a lot of theories on why it might be, and the likelihood is that it's different in different people. It could be things such as food passing through your gut too quickly or too slowly. It can be oversensitive nerves in your gut. It can be a result of stress. There might be a genetic component, or it could be something to do with the types of food you're eating. So I want to talk about some foods that can trigger IBS symptoms, and even if you don't have IBS, you can still have foods that cause these kind of symptoms in your body. So some of the triggers can be alcohol, caffeine, maybe spicy or fatty foods, and it can even be stress or anxiety, or there may appear to be even no reason for a flare-up. So because of the fact that there is likely different causes of IBS, the cause is generally unknown and it probably is different within different people, there is not going to be one treatment that necessarily works, but I'm hoping to go through a few of the recommended tips and tricks from the NHS, and then I'll follow it on later for things that I have personally learned along the way from many different people who have found these things to work for them, whether you have IBS or whether you just want to improve your own gut health. So things that are helpful are cooking homemade meals with fresh ingredients, keeping a diary of your food. So this one's really important if your trigger is some kind of food item, because you can track the food you're eating and track your symptoms and see if any of these line up. Be aware that your food could take up to 24 hours to travel through your system, so from when you eat it to when it comes out. So it could be something you've recently eaten, but if you're experiencing symptoms further down, especially like bloating, it's likely that it's something that you ate a little while ago that is now being processed in the body. If your IBS doesn't appear to be triggered by food, maybe it appears to be triggered by some kind of anxiety. Just to briefly mention, maybe things like meditation, maybe things like journaling, maybe seeing a counsellor, or doing things that you know that makes you relax. If you feel like it's anxiety that is causing your IBS, definitely go onto the NHS website. There are more resources there. Speak to your GP. There are other options available for you. Trying out probiotics might also help. I have spoke about probiotics and prebiotics in my previous video on gut microbiota, so if you want to go check that one out, then please do. You'll get more of a general information on that. So these are things to not do. So don't delay or skip meals. Your gut is much healthier when you have a regular eating cycle. It knows when to expect food. It will start preparing to digest the food at that time each day if you keep a regular cycle. So this will help you to prevent things like bloating, to prevent things like stomach cramps and pain. Trying not to eat too quickly, trying to reduce the amount of fatty and processed food you have, trying to eat about 3 portions of fresh fruit per day and no more. So to get your 5 or 7 a day, have the remaining as vegetables. Trying to limit the amount of tea and coffee you have in a day, as this can be a very common trigger, so maybe no more than 3 cups. Or trying it for yourself, seeing how many is like your limit. And the same with alcohol and fizzy drinks. To ease bloating, cramps and farting, you can eat oats regularly. Eat about a tablespoon of linseeds each day. Avoid foods such as cabbage, broccoli, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, beans, onions and dried fruit, as these are harder to digest. Avoid products that contain a sweetener called sorbitol, and you can ask a pharmacist about any medications that might help, such as buscopan or peppermint oil has also been recommended. So reducing diarrhea, you might want to cut down on some high fibre foods such as whole grains, brown bread, brown rice, nuts and seeds. Again, avoid sorbitol. And maybe consider taking something like Imodium, but speak to your pharmacist about that first. Make sure that you drink plenty of water if you are experiencing diarrhea, as this may lead to dehydration, so you want to keep hydrated. So on the other side, if you have constipation, drink plenty of water again. In the opposite way, increase the amount of fibre you eat. So again, back to those oats, pulses, carrots, peeled potatoes, linseeds. And again, ask your pharmacist about medicines that may help. So for example, different types of laxatives. Many dietitians are also recommending the low Fodmap diet, which involves avoiding foods that are not easily broken down in the gut. For example, some types of fruits and vegetables, milks and wheat products. So I do recommend reading further into that if that's something you're interested in. There is quite a good evidence base behind a low Fodmap diet for treatment of IBS. So a really helpful bit of information that I didn't even know until I read this for research for this video is that you can actually go to the IBS network or the Disability Rights UK website, and you can buy a key that allows you to access public toilets. So if you do find yourself out and about and you have some stomach cramps, maybe you feel some diarrhea coming along, the opposite, maybe one of the reasons you are constipated is that you are constantly holding on because you don't have an access to a toilet. You can actually buy a key that gives you access for that, so that you can get there easily in an emergency. You don't have to pay like the 20p extra money. So that can allow you to maybe feel a bit more comfortable going out and about if your IBS is really affecting you to the point where it's actually impacting on your life. So hopefully you get a broad idea of what IBS is, the kinds of foods that are helpful and the kinds of foods that trigger IBS. I encourage you that if you haven't been to see your doctor about any of these symptoms you might have, please do go and see them. You don't have to have IBS or any other kind of bowel condition to experience diarrhea and constipation, bloating, stomach cramps. You still might experience these things every now and then in your day-to-day life. And there are some really simple, really easy things that you can do to add into your daily routine to help you to maintain a good gut motility and good gut health. These points that I want to talk about are specifically to help you to have good bowel movements. And even if you think you haven't noticed that you have any issues with your bowel movements, you might find that when you do these things and you start getting a regular, hopefully daily bowel movement, it's actually kind of life-changing. I have a few different points that I want to discuss, and the first one is something I'm going to call poo anxiety. I think this happens with a lot of people, as it's kind of something that you don't really talk about unless you're very comfortable with maybe your partner or some family or friends, but a lot of people don't talk about it, and I think we kind of bring this shame onto this natural body process that everybody has, everybody experiences. Sometimes people can get very anxious, like they don't want to do a number 2 in someone else's house, they don't want to do it at work, they worry that it's going to smell and other people might smell it. I think it's important to talk about it more and be just more like relaxed and laugh about it, rather than being so anxious about what somebody else is going to think of you, because they have it too. Every single human being, every single animal, all do this same thing. We all go for a poo, and I think it's really important to try and step away from the kind of shame or the anxiety around it. Also, poo anxiety, especially where it gets so bad that you can't, for example, use public bathrooms or use bathrooms at work, it means that you end up holding on to that poo all day, and nobody wants that. Why would you want to keep that extra poo inside of you? It's only going to get more smelly, it's only going to make you feel bloated, make you feel bad. It's best to get it out when your body wants to get it out. Just having that poo anxiety can actually cause yourself to experience things like IBS symptoms. So, second pointer is to keep a regular eating schedule. Try not to eat after 6 p.m. if you can help it, to allow your body to then fast overnight. We don't want to be constantly putting food into our body, because our body needs a little bit of time to reset so that it can process what is going through the gut and do that in its most optimum healthy way. If you don't eat after 6 p.m, the likelihood is that you will have your next bowel movement in the morning, and that's amazing because often you'll be at home in the morning and you'll be able to do it before going out to see your friends or before going to work, and also you know to expect it then, so it's not going to bother you at any other point during the day. Everybody's body is different, and some people just won't go every single day, and if that's what your body will naturally do, that's fine. So not eating after 6 p.m, then exercising as soon as you wake up. Exercising first thing in the morning, even just a quick and easy exercise routine, short run or walk or anything, yoga, it can then help things to move down and that poo to be prepared to be eliminated. Taking a walk after lunch, or especially after a large meal, and going for a walk can just help that gut motility, helping your body to stay active, helping the food to move around the intestines smoothly, and stop food just sitting there, especially if it's a large quantity of food. Another one, touching on the exercise side, is specifically yoga. So if you want a morning exercise to do, especially if you feel like you need to go, maybe you're prone to constipation, yoga is amazing, especially the twisting exercises. So anything like this, twisting around the spine around, where you're kind of compressing those digestive muscles. Make sure you do it both sides. You can do things like this. Use the leg to open up, open twist, swap the legs, that kind of thing. There's so many more you can do. Laying down, spinal twists. A lot of twists are really helpful for the digestive system to help move that food down. The next one I want to talk about is drinking water. We already discussed this in the IBS section, but I wanted to highlight it again just because water is amazing for your gut and your gut health. It is possible to have too much water, but it's unlikely that most people will get to that point. A lot of people don't drink enough water. Trying to always have, like, for example, something like this or a bottle of water nearby you will just encourage you to drink it. If you don't like plain water, you can put lemon juice. I've got some lemon juice in here, or even anything like that's low sugar that is gonna flavour the water, but just be careful to avoid that sweetener sorbitol. My last tip is something that some people might find a bit funny. Maybe some people even struggle to do it because of limits in their mobility. But if you can, a really great thing for constipation is squatting. So squatting like this, so in the mornings, is great. This is actually something that was recommended to me by one of my yoga teachers when I was in India, but it is backed with scientific evidence as well. So maybe wake up, do your morning exercise. If you still feel like you can't go to the toilet, you can sit in this squatted position and drink your water. And that actually should stimulate your body, because naturally when we would poo, before we started sitting on seated toilets, we would poo like this or like this. So it's actually really strange that we now poo like seated like this, because our gut is actually facing the wrong way and it's compressed, and it can actually make us have more difficulty getting the poo out of our body. If you do then need to go, pooing like this is amazing. Some people might think this is really embarrassing, but you can actually get stools that lift your feet up so that you are hovered over the toilet like this. Makes it so much easier. It makes it actually cleaner because your bum is in the right direction for the poo to come out. So instead of getting all stuck on the outside of your bum, it just comes straight out into the toilet and is actually cleaner than sitting like that. Any kind of getting your knees higher than your stomach will help you to get your bum in the right position to actually be able to poo better. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope that you didn't feel embarrassed watching it. I hope that regardless of whether you have these symptoms or not, this video can give you benefits that you don't even know you need. Please do send me any messages if you have any questions, and I hope to see you in the next video.